Namaskaram. Hello, everybody. It's been a fortnight since the last episode of Expressions Espresso. And of course, International Women's Day has just gone by. A day to reiterate on the capabilities and potential of our women. A day to remember, to laud, to extra laud our women achievers. I once again would like to say I'm so proud of the women who have been guests on this show, each a trailblazer in her own way. The last fortnight, we had, rather, I should say it as a fortnight ago, on that Sunday, we had Rajiv Menon sharing his experiences in filmmaking and cinematography. He's a visual storyteller indeed, and it was a delight to listen to his perspectives and about music that is his another love. Thank you, Rajiv, for that interesting and enlightening session. Our guest for today is a power package, a very talented youngster who has carved his very own path in filmdom at a very young age. I have to use the word very because there's so much that he's done already. His crooning has melted and tugged the strings of many a heart, and his music is as unique as he is. A true hybridist. And his music represents a collision point of radically different worlds. Born in Chennai, but brought up entirely in the United States, this duality of cultural roots was integral in forming his personal and artistic identity. The Indian classical roots and his alternative music clash yet merge vibrantly, bringing to the table some wonderful, unusual musical fares. He grew up soaking in the music of legendary artists such as Stevie Wonder, A.R. Rahman, Kanye West, Luther Vandross, Sigur Rós, and these influences have defined his artistic evolution. Little did he know that one of them would become his musical mentor in later years, the one and only A.R. Rahman ji, whom we have been fortunate in having as a guest in the 25th episode of Expressions Espresso. His debut in Indian film music was with the path-breaking song Adiye, composed by A.R., an indication saying, Adiye, there is more to come. On his other side, he loves abstract art and is especially passionate about the work of Jackson Pollock, whose paintings have inspired many a musical idea. He also creates abstract sketch art that comes from a subconscious space. A voracious reader as well, he enjoys both fiction and non-fiction. He absolutely loves films and tends to gravitate towards filmmakers such as Paul Thomas Anderson, Mani Ratnam Sir, Quentin Tarantino, and so on. His favorite sport is watching basketball, which to him is most relaxing. Phew, what a variety. Very, very interesting to be able to speak to this youngster and get to know more about his body of work and him. Who is this he? It's my pleasure to welcome the very, very talented heart stealer, Sid Sriram. Sid, even as I say your name, I'm fumbling.
Thank you
Sid
so much for
Sriram
having me.
this evening.
I'm so
How are
happy
you?
to be here. I'm good. I'm good. Like I told you before, I'm in Hyderabad right now for an audio launch, but really happy to be making this happen. I've been a fan of the show, a fan of yours for my whole life, and a fan of this show since you started. So I'm honored to be here.
How sweet of you to say that. Thank you. Before we get to the show, I want to wish all the women who have celebrated Karadaya Nongu. I'm sure you will have a blessed evening and the rest of the year. Sid, the viewers and I have great happiness in this fact that you're here, despite the fact that you have an audio launch later this evening. That shows your commitment, and you want to keep your word.
Sure.
That's a very good quality, and we really appreciate that. We look forward to chatting with you on some amazing film music, the current industry trends, your classical music, and of course your other aspirations. It seems like there is a lot of art at home, a lot of foundation, despite your family having moved to the US long ago.
Mm.
And like for all of us, I think it's your mother who was your first guru.
Mm-hmm.
So how were those years when you grew up with Carnatic music in the background and you were told to learn a few kritis, etc.?
Sure. So I was born in Chennai in 1990, and our family decided to move to Fremont, California in 91. So basically, my whole life was spent in the States. And a couple years after we moved there, I'd say 93, 92, 93, my mom started teaching music, Carnatic music, to students in the San Francisco Bay Area. And even actually backtracking before that, her father, my grandfather, C.R. Rajagopalan, he was a Carnatic musician and also a film composer and arranger. So it was kind of in the lineage. And I think without me even knowing, it just found its way into my whole psyche from a really young age. And interestingly enough, my parents didn't like push me or anything. Like I heard my mom's students singing. I heard it all around all the time. And the story they've told me is that when I was around 3 years old, I started nagging them, asking them if I could perform on stage. And I think I just wanted the attention maybe, but I also know I think I just naturally gravitated towards the music form. So finally one day they said, okay, go sing on stage if you like. So my mom taught me a small Tirupugar, and I sang on stage for the first time at 3, and it was kind of no looking back after that. I fell in love with it deeply, and that love has only grown since.
So having grown up in the United States all your life, as you said, how did you get this ability to express yourself, your music, in so many different languages? Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, maybe Malayalam too? So how do you follow your lyrics?
I think, but at first, Carnatic music quickly became my way of trying to find my identity as a person. As far back as elementary school, being an Indian person, going to public school in the United States, there was definitely a sense of identity crisis. Trying to figure out who I was, how I fit into the social sphere over there. And I was really blessed to have Carnatic music be such a anchor point at home, and it was omnipresent, always there. So that led me into kind of a deep journey with the form, and I think it's such a blessing that Carnatic music spans all these different languages. So from like the beginning, my mom made it a point to teach me pieces in these different languages slowly,
Right.
and that foundation has really fared me really well in the later years in my film career. Dabbling into Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, a little bit of Kannada. But that I think I would definitely owe it to the rigorous practice that she put me through when I was a kid. I think that's kind of like allowed me to the portals to get into it now, for sure.
So you have been quoted as saying, with a newfound, more logical understanding of the identity of different ragas and how they could manifest in the context of compositions, kritis, and various improvisational forms, my subconscious love for music grew. So as you said, this foundation really helped you, but how was it more meaningful when you went into film music?
Sure. Well, I think really what happened is my journey with Carnatic music has kind of formed both my foundation, my fountainhead, my framework, and vocabulary of how I approach all my musical pursuits. And it's because it's such a rich form that has so many layers, and there's so much to continuously discover in it. It allowed me an understanding of, okay, this is how I view music. This is what I understand about music. So when it came time to approach a film song, whether that be understanding a melody or how I wanted to vocalize, how I wanted to use this voice that was given to me, I think I owe that to Carnatic music. Just to backtrack a little bit too, I think my journey with Carnatic music specifically has been an interesting one. At first, I knew I could sing well when I was a kid. Like I was aware of this, and there's enough and more people, not my family, but the people that would come watch and stuff. They would always shower compliments, and maybe it went to my head when I was much younger, and I was quite confident, I'll say. But because the form is, quite complex and there's so much to discover, I hit a point maybe in my teens where it felt like I was hitting a glacier. I didn't quite understand some of the deeper improvisational aspects, how to define what made a raga. Really kind of figuring that the more kind of breaking it down into units. It was a very confusing kind of time for me. And I considered giving up when I started college. And instead of doing that, luckily, again, like I have a family unit that always really pushed me and didn't allow me to compromise. So instead of giving up, I kind of really dug deep and started exploring the form, thinking about, okay, if I learn a song in Kamboji, like what makes it feel like Kamboji? How can I take that essence that I feel when I'm singing a Kriti and then channel that into how I sing an alapane and other improvisational forms. And that journey and that process of understanding and learning is still continuing to this day. But I hit a point, I would say maybe 5 years ago, maybe like 5.5 years ago, where it really started clicking for me. So once that point happened, when I felt like in my soul, I could really feel that I understood some of these very core elements, that helped immensely in my film music, because I felt like for the first time, this framework that I was talking about, I felt like I had gained a certain clarity with it. And that clarity gave me confidence. It gave me a way to approach anything. So when I heard, normally when I get a film song, I'll hear the rough version of the song first. And then I'll have to internalize it, understand what the melody is, what the situation is, and then give my emotion to it and sing it in the most natural, emotional way possible. I think because I'd taken the time to really break down this incredible form of Carnatic music, then I was able to, I had a process in place in my brain that I could say, okay, I can take this piece of music, I can define it for myself, I can break it down into its elements, and hopefully give it what it needs for the music director, the film director, and the audience to feel like they resonate with it. So that's my, I guess, long form answer to the question.
Yeah, but it's complete. You've said everything that needs to be said about expressing yourself.
Sure.
So when we meet a guest, we offer a bouquet of flowers. So it's going to be a bouquet of 3 ragas that you like, 3 songs, Kritis.
Awesome.
Just one line.
Sure. Well, I'm looking forward to this.
Chukale Rayani Chukale Rayani Gerumo Gale Sudati Sitam Sumitri Sriramuni Kiru Akale Nilavati Kulichebu Sete Maga Dilpara Sri satya narayanam upasmahe nityam Sri Satya Narayanam Upasmahe Nityam Satya Jnananandamayam Sarvam Vishnu Mayam Sri Pili jite yenuju That was
Awesome.
specially
That was
written
so
to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I loved that. That's awesome.
So, Moments of Weakness, which you released in 2015, was a combination of rhythm and blues that seamlessly blended with classical Indian singing techniques. And it gave it a very unique presentation. What was the inspiration, or rather, who was the inspiration behind this?
So I started writing that song a couple years before. In our house in Fremont, we have a piano. I just gotten back from a trip from New York. I was working some music there, visiting some people. Gotten back, and I was just in this particular. I think I was in a point in my life where I felt like I needed to transition, and I felt a bit stagnant at the same time. Like in my core, I felt like I need to move forward in some way and progress. So the song was kind of it's a farewell to childhood, I guess, and a feeling of missing childhood, but knowing that one has to grow up and
Right.
so it was born from that concept, and yeah, it just kind of flowed out of me. I sat at the piano, and it just all came together within I want to say an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then just the next 2 years was just spent thinking about how I wanted to package it and produce it and the layers I wanted in it. But yeah, it was also I think one of the first songs where I found that meeting point between soul R&B and my Carnatic music influences, how they could kind of coexist and live with each other. So yeah, it was a very special song to me, and I felt like it was the first step in creating my own sound that I think has progressed into what it is today.
So, looking back now, when you think of it, what do you think you could have done better?
A whole lot. I'm like a perfectionist to the point where like because before I even started singing for films, my first goal when I went to college at Berklee was to write and release my own original music in English. And I'm a perfectionist to the point that I hold on to my own compositions for a really long time. I feel like I can do a little bit better. Thinking back on it, I think I would have maybe cluttered my voice a little bit less. I would have let my voice just live a little bit more nakedly so people could feel the vulnerability in it. And maybe exaggerated some of these buildups. I think one of my favorite things in music, whether it be Carnatic music or Western music, is when there's these big buildups of just like tension and then release. So I think maybe doing that a little bit more if I were to go back to that song.
Okay. So Kannatangam, your debut song as a composer, was a kind of a double bonanza for you because it was for the film Vanam Kotattu, is it?
Yes. Yes.
Produced by the one only Mani Ratnam sir, and it was launched by AR.
Yes.
How did it feel to have two greats to be a part of your first? And how did this happen?
Yeah, it was surreal. So the way it all came together was the summer prior to that, like July of 2019, sorry. I was in Chennai just for like a few days actually for a show. And I got a call from Madras Talkies to come to the office. They wanted to talk to me about something. And I thought maybe it's a song or something like that. But they said there's this film and they wanted me to music direct and compose, which was a bit of a shocker for me. It's something that as a goal, I'd had maybe like 5 years down the line. But the opportunity presented itself. I got to speak to Mani sir about it. And I mean, like I've said, I'm such a huge fan of his work, and just the vision he has and the way he articulates himself, very few words, but says so much. So I was just basically bowled over when I got to speak to him. I was like, yes, whatever it is, I want to do it. And a couple months after that, I started working on the film. And I must say, it was one of the most challenging, most exciting, but challenging and rigorous times of my life. One of the most challenging processes, because it was 24/7, constantly working at it, kind of taking up all my mind space. And Karnatangam was the first release. So while we were working on the movie, Mani sir said that he needed a lullaby, something that felt like a modern day lullaby that still felt rustic in a way. And I tried a couple different ideas. Nothing was really locking in. He was quite clear that he wanted all the songs in the film to feel fresh and new and not feel like something that had been done before. But everything that I was presenting him with and the team with did not quite have that magic to it. So I asked him, like, sir, is there anything that you think I should listen to as a reference point or something that maybe can guide me? And he told me to listen to some R.D. Burman songs. And I'd never really heard his music before, maybe in passing, but not like a focused listen. So when I did listen, and it took 2 weeks, all I listened to was R.D. Burman for those 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, I think what I really internalized and understood was there's a simplicity in his composition where the melodies are not super ornamented. They're not very complex, but they really communicate something very powerful in a very simple way. So the first idea that I came to the piano and created after that was Karnatangam. And I was still very iffy about it. I thought, oh, maybe it's not going to work, or I didn't judge it at all. I just did it. And I was going to actually put it in the trash can. I was like, I don't think this is good. I don't want to keep giving them ideas that they don't like. But I just by chance played it, and Mani sir loved it. And then Shiva Anand sir from Madras Talkies, he wrote the lyrics for the song. And it just came together again. What I've realized is the best pieces of music I've created, they come together rapidly. Like it just feels like I'm channeling something else and it just happens. So it came together, and then that song became like the theme for the whole movie. It comes in and out through the whole film. And to have AR Sir release that to launch it was just surreal. I mean, I've said this many times and I'll say it again. He's my hero in so many different ways. But first and foremost, as a human being, but artistically and musically, the foresight he has, the vision, the courage, all of that. And with this piece, I felt like, it was a very minimalist piece and very different from what was coming out in Tamil cinema at the time or even now. So I was definitely nervous. But once he agreed to release it and he gave me some encouraging words and kind of indicated that he was happy that I had taken a bold step with the song and did something different. That's all the validation I really needed. I was really happy about that.
Yeah, I'm going to wish you lots of luck with future projects. I'm sure you're going to. I think it's because you're a perfectionist that you feel this little bit of diffidence, or shall we say, thaikam. In Tamil we say thaikam. Yeah,
sure.
That's right. Yeah. So we're going to talk about your Kollywood music. Your kind of delivery is found to be very unique, and you are absolutely comfortable in what you do. So every song almost has become a chartbuster. So we want to know which are your favorites, and if you can just do a small medley for us.
Sure. It's hard to choose. I generally me and favorites are really hard because I feel
I totally
because they're almost like children, and I feel like I'm favoring one over the other. But I would say I'll name them first, and I'll sing a little bit of each. IDA for sure is one of my favorites because it was the debut. Then Yannod Nirandal is another big one for me. And then I think Marugarte is one that's very close to my heart. And then the fourth I'll name is Yane Matram Kadali. That one's also something I feel very closely to.
So when you
And
bring
that,
words of these songs together, it makes a small story.
yeah, for sure.
Kundal, Maruvarte. And then what was the last one?
Yane Matram Kadali.
So,
So I'll sing a little bit of this one right now.
yeah.
I'll start with Adiye. Manasa Tarandayani
Ah,
Engarindu Valdayani Adiye Adiye என்னை எங்க நீ கூட்டி போற பல்லாங்குழி பத புரியல உன்னை நம்பி வாரேனே இந்த காட்டு பையன் ஒரு ஆட்டுக்குட்டி போல உன் பின்ன சுத்துறேனே அடியே அடியே என்ன எங்க நீ கூட்டி போற அடியே அடியே என்ன எங்க நீ கூட்டி போற என்னோடு நீ இருந்தால் உயிரோடு நான் இருப்பேன் என்னோடு நீ இருந்தால் உயிரோடு நான் இருப்பேன் ஓ என்னை நான் யாரென்று சொன்னாலும் புரியாதே என் காதல் நீ என்று யாருக்கும் தெரியாதே நீ கேட்ட உலகத்தை நான் வாங்கி தருவேனே நீ இல்லா உலகத்தில் நான் வாழ மாட்டேனே என்னோடு நீ இருந்தால்
ah.
மறுவார்த்தை பேசாதே மடி மீது நீ தூங்கிடு இமை போல நான் காக்க கனவாய் நீ மாறிடு மயில் தோகை போலே விரல் உன்னை வருடும் மனப்பாடமாய் உரையாடல் நிகழும் விழிநீரும் வீணாக இமை தாண்ட கூடாதென துளியாக நான் சேர்த்தேன் கடலாக கண்ணானதே மறந்தாலும் நான் உன்னை நினைக்காத நாளில்லையே இருந்தாலும் என் அன்பு ஒரு போதும் பொய்யில்லையே எதுக்காக கிட்ட வந்தாளோ எதை தேடி விட்டு போனாளோ விழுந்தாலும் நான் உடஞ்சே போயிருந்தாலும் உன்னினை விருந்தாலே போதும் நிமிர்ந்திடுவேனே நானும் அடக்காதல் என்பது மாயவலை கண்ணீரும் கூட சொந்தமில்லை வலியில்லா வாழும் வாழ்க்கையே தேவையில்லை என்னை மாற்றும் காதலே உன்னை மாற்றும் காதலே எதையும் மாற்றும் காதலே காதலே
Wow.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
think
so
it
much.
really had so much of melody, so much of, there was a bit of classicism in it as well. And
Correct.
there's so much of anguish, emotion. Wonderful. I'm just
Thank you so much. Thank you.
floored. Inkem Kavali from Geeta Govindam. I think it gathered a lot of female fans for you.
Yeah.
Looks like your fan base has really grown after that. So what is it according to you that made this particular number so magical?
I think it's a bunch of different factors. Like it's a perfect storm. It was a kind of a perfect storm. I think So first, Gopi Sundar, he sent me a rough of the track with him
Mhm.
singing, or there's a rough vocal. And the minute I heard it, I was super drawn to it. Certain songs, like the minute you hear, you just know, oh, this one is definitely special. And it was one of those instances. I was lying in bed. I was back in California at the time for like summer, and I was about to go to sleep. He just sent it, so I put on my headphones and listened, and I just sat right up. I was like, oh, this is special. Um, and so, first, in terms of the composition, I think what makes it special is kind of this coming together of a bit of this Carnatic tinge influence, but still there being a very modern approach to the music production, the way the drums sound, uh, and the song structure. It never loses the listener's interest. From start to finish, there's something going on that feels special, that is holding the focus. So, as a composition, I think even like take me away from the song, I think it's still like a magical number. Then at that time, I had not sung too many pure Telugu songs. The only other Telugu songs I'd sung up until that point were dubs of the Tamil songs I've sung. Uh, or there's one song called Adiga Adiga from the film Ninu Kori that was, and that did really well as well. But I think there was just people weren't as aware of me in that market. So, um, and I have to really give my hats off to the director of the film, Parasuram sir. He really spent the time with me to get my pronunciation right. Because even though I'd had experience singing Telugu songs in the context of Carnatic music, my mother tongue is Tamil and I speak English.
Yeah.
Nothing else is as free for me other than those two languages. So he took the time to make sure it felt natural and I didn't sound like a foreigner or someone from outside. Um, and yeah, certain sessions just are magical. Sometimes you feel like God is in the room with you, and I think that was one of those such sessions where it just flowed in a certain way. And then to the other side of it, the cast of the film with Vijay Deverakonda and Rashmika Mandana, both of them such talented actors. They're very compelling, and they just have this very positive vibe about them. And I think it was the coming together of all of this. The lyrics, the music, me feeling like I deeply resonated with the piece and could give my soul to it, and the actors who brought the song to life. And
Right.
I didn't expect. The thing is, like, the songs that end up being super hits are the ones that I don't think about. Like, oh, I hope this is a hit, or I think this is going to be a hit. I just don't. I zone out. I do my job, and then I forget about it. And then it came out, and then it just went gangbusters. Just the rest, as they say, is history. So, yeah, it was a special moment for sure.
இவ்வளவு அந்த பாட்டை பத்தி சொன்ன அப்புறம் பாடாத விட முடியாது.
Sorry, 1 second. Let me just pull up the lyrics. I have them right here. ఇంకేం కావాలే చాలే ఇది చాలే నీకై నువ్వే వచ్చి వాలవే ఇకపై తిరనాళ్ళే గుండెల్లో నా వేగం పెంచావే గుమ్మంలోకి హోలీ తెచ్చావే నువ్వు పక్కనుంటే ఇంతేనేమోనే నాకొక్కో గంట ఒక్కో జన్మై మళ్ళీ పుట్టి చేస్తున్నానే ఇంకేం కావాలే చాలే ఇది చాలే ఊహలకు దొరకని సొగసా ఊపిరిని వదలని గొలుసా నీకు ముడిపడినది తెలుసా మనసున ప్రతి కొసా నీ కనుల మెరుపుల వరస రేపినది వయసున రభస నా చిలిపి కలలకు బహుశా ఇది వెలుగుల దశ నీ ఎదుట నిలబడు చనువే వీసా అందుకొని గగనపు కొనలే చూసా ఇంకేం కావాలే చాలే ఇది చాలే
ఇంకా కావాలి మాకు మీరు పాడేది. So good, really. I mean, it's pretty peppy, and even though you said you had your Telugu corrected, there is a bit of your own style that comes into it that gives it a contemporary touch. The young
Sure.
dead, you know.
Thank you so much.
So the next question is about, it's a little sensitive in the sense that you are going to talk about your recording experiences about two greats,
Yes.
Isegnani Ilayaraja sir and Oscar winner A.R. sir.
Yes.
So what is the
Uh,
difference? What is the similarity?
sure. Well, my relationship with both of them is quite there's very different relationships. Whereas with AR Sir, I could say he's the figure that got me outside of my mom, my grandfather, and family. He's the person I would say from a young age that instilled in me a passion for music, like a fiery passion for music. The minute I'd heard, whether it was Roja or his Vande Mataram album or some of his Hindi work like Dal and stuff like that, um, it just made me, and I was too young to be able to articulate what it was about his music, but it just made me feel something very deep. With Raja Sir's music, I didn't get into it until much later in my life. I think I had to grow up and be a bit more mature because it was from a time period before my own. Um, and so I was like maybe or like middle late college when I really fell in love with his music. But when I did, I felt very passionately in love with his music. So, and then also in terms of my personal relationships with both of them,
Yeah.
ARC has very much been a mentor. He's been a guru. He offers me advice all the time, and I've seeked out advice from the very beginning. And I in many ways owe my career to him in terms of he really took a chance on me in the beginning and has continued to do so. So I would say that my recordings with AR Sir are very much colored by that relationship. He pushes me. He thinks of ideas while we're recording, and I think the best example is Yennod in the Indal. While we're recording that, there's like these little small sangatis that happen here and there in the verses. That while we were recording, he said, "Okay, quickly try this, try that. No, try this." Even Adi actually, it's almost every recording with him has been in that way, and in that way, it's been really me being extremely present in the moment, taking in like whatever direction he's giving me and reacting to it in real time. It's a very exciting process. I always go into those sessions a bit nervous, but come out of it feeling like uh, just a better musician, just a more kind of complete musician. So that's how I would characterize my sessions with Rahman sir. With Raja sir, much more recent. My first song with him was like 2 years ago. Um, I knew going into this that he was a stickler for sticking to the composition as has been composed, and even he not really kind of changing anything in terms of the melody from what was already set. So I went into the session keeping that in mind and be like kind of psyching myself out to make sure I was disciplined when I was in the studio, because I kind of like to veer off here and there sometimes, but I was like, no, just stick to the melody. It rang true for sure. He was clear about what he needed from me, and I very closely worked with Vasu sir, who is close associate of Raja, and
Yes.
he kind of really prepped me up and made sure that I had the melody. I learned it first for a good hour or so. Then Raja sir came and listened to me sing it. He made his corrections, and I was really nervous, but he was super sweet. And he kind of just got right to what I needed to change and all that. And the recording went very smoothly. So in terms of the differences, I would say those are the key differences. While one is spontaneous in terms of the ideas that AR Sir is giving me in real time, and he's pushing me in this direction and that. The other one felt like it was still spontaneous in that I had to draw from a deeply emotional place, but the composition was the composition. It wasn't changing from the start to finish. It was always going to be what it was. The similarities would just be their fiery passion for music. I think it's so palpable with both of them. There's just like this inexplicable joy that you can see in their eyes. With AR Sir, if I go to Adiye, there's this riff at the very end of the song that there's this long R&B riff that he said try something, and I did that, and he was like, wow. And he was vocal about it, and you could hear the emotion in his voice. And this was my first time working with him, and I was just floored at that moment. I was like, oh, this man who I consider God is giving me this. So, you can feel that passion. You can feel their youthful exuberance and how much they are in love with what they do. With Raja Sir, same thing. When I was singing, I forget which song it was. I think it was not Unna, it was Ninga Mudiyamma, the other song from Psycho that I'd sung for him. Um, he said vocalize like a horn instrument, and he showed me how a trumpet, if a singer used to sound like a trumpet, he showed me how that would be. He said, try that. And there was just this fire in his eyes when he was giving me these briefs and kind of pushing me in this way. And it was, he's been doing it for decades and decades now, and just at the very top of the game. And the way that he had this, like in his eyes, it felt like I was talking to someone who was super young, just like hungry. There's this hunger in it. And I would say that is the similarity. There's just this, they're both still so in love with music, maybe more now than ever, and you can feel it. So yeah, it's just a blessing. I growing up, I would never have dreamt that I would get to work with both of these people. So I still pinch myself sometimes. It's crazy.
I think you really summarized that beautifully. Yeah. Now we come to your classical Carnatic concerts. When you sing here, we see a lot of youngsters trooping in. Do you think it's because they got familiar with your music and you, through your playback singing?
Yeah, definitely. I think what playback singing, what the film space has allowed me and blessed me with is just this great fan base, a very dedicated, passionate fan base of, youngsters, but across the spectrum. I think what's beautiful about a lot of the songs I've sung is that they don't only cater to younger people or older people. It's kind of relatable across the board. But what's been very special to me is I feel like I take the responsibility of being an ambassador for Carnatic music because it has given me everything, So I feel very passionate about it. And what's been beautiful is to see these younger listeners who maybe would have never thought about coming to a Carnatic music otherwise, but they love Talipoga Day or something like that. So like, I want to just go see them live. And they come and they realize that Carnatic music is a very dynamic form that is filled with excitement. It is, there's a lot that it can give you. It's been that's one of the things that I think makes me most proud of my journey so far, is looking out into an audience and seeing a bunch of youngsters, older people who haven't listened to Carnatic music, just new listeners. I think because I do really feel like it's my responsibility to take this gorgeous, gorgeous form of music and spread it to as many people as possible. And yeah, I take it very seriously, and I want to continue to do that for sure.
So when you sing a Bantu Riti Kolo or Kailasanatena, and then you have to sing Adiye,
yeah,
how do you completely switch the gears? And is there a difference in the way you use your voice?
Sure. Well, I think it comes down to like the R&B, soul, jazz stuff that I'm so familiar with. I got into that when I was like 10 years old, thereabouts. Just like listening to music on the radio, falling in love with it. So like in many ways, my path with Carnatic music and my path with the soul R&B stuff has moved in parallel since I was a child. And because I'm deeply entrenched in both worlds, it's allowed me to like very deliberately approach each form and be very intentional about one not spilling into the other or vice versa. And I've been a stickler to that, because one thing that frustrates me is when I'm listening to music, if there's like a slip up and you hear something that feels a bit foreign but not done with intention, it feels sloppy, and I never wanted to be someone that did that. So I've really kind of taken the time to spend the time with that. I think the way I vocalize, let's see, like if Kamboji, for example, like in like a higher, like like the amount of power. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of like how I'm using my voice from the gut, it remains the same. But then the embellishment, the way that the notes twist and turn is subtly different from like the blues discipline from the Carnatic discipline. And it's been super fun for me to kind of play around with that, because especially as my knowledge and my grasp of the Carnatic music has really strengthened over the years, where I can feel that I have a command over how I curve a note or how I approach a flat note or something like that. And I think ultimately that has helped me so much in the R&B side as well, because I have just a control over my voice where for the most part I can do what I hear in my head. I'm able to execute it now after all these years of just practicing and getting into it.
With the pandemic, live shows that of yours were such huge crowd pullers, but now have been relegated to the back seat and substituted by online shows mostly.
Yeah.
Do you think there are some merits, and are there any demerits in this change?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be fully honest. I really haven't done. I don't think I've really done any like purely live streamed concerts in
Okay.
any space, Carnatic or film or original music. Um, just because I think, I mean, we as performers know that one of the biggest things is that connection and
Yes.
that feeling of like connecting to real human beings and that energy exchange. That's what makes it so beautiful and feels like we're transcending. And however much we try through a digital space, it's like substantially minimized that feeling of true soulful connection. I mean, it's amazing to be able to see someone else smile. And I think I'm really happy that technology has progressed to this point. But with that said, musically, yeah, I mean, it's a shame that this is where we're at, but I think I'll say this. I think the merit for me, I'll speak for myself, is that it gave me a whole like 1 year period where I could practice without having to think about the stage at all. I just was able to practice without thinking about anything. Whereas before I was always, oh no, there's a kacheri tomorrow, then I have to go do this live show next week. So I need to make sure I prepare and get to it immediately. And it'd been a long time since I'd had open-ended, just hours of sitting down and practicing without thinking about anything else.
Right.
So that was a huge silver lining for me. And I'm very, very grateful that I got that. I was able to spend the year with my mom and we just sat together and she taught me new kritis. And I really got to like fall back in love with music in a certain way. The obvious demerits of it are the fact that, we don't get to connect with people. And my hope is that post this, as we transition out of the pandemic, hopefully sooner rather than later, the fact that shows have been so scarce and not happening is just going to reinvigorate listeners, reinvigorate performers to come back to it with even greater sense of passion. So I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you for two special songs. One, especially for your huge women fan base, and one melody that describes a beautiful relationship.
Sure. I think to dedicate to all my wonderful women fans, I will sing Yanadi Mayavini from the film Vada Chennai. I'll just get the lyrics up for that as well. 1 second. Here we go. Hey, itale kerira, pontadam podira, ye uyiraadira, ennadi Mayavini, ennelo maatra, andaramakra, enna jo kaatra. பட்டா கத்தி தூக்கி இப்ப மிட்டாய் நறுக்குற விட்டா நெஞ்சவாரியும் பட்டாக்கு இருக்கிற துருரு 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 ஏய் என் தலைக்கேறுற. A little bit of that. And what was the second one? A relationship, like outlining a beautiful relationship. That's a tough one. I mean, like it could be a romantic. I think I'll sing Karnatic because I think the relationship between a father and a child, a daughter, is beautiful. So I'll sing a little bit of that. Arariraro, raro, raro, arariraro. ஆராரிராரோ கண்ணான கண்ணே கண்ணான கண்ணே என் மீது சாயவா
Hmm.
பொன்னான நெஞ்சை பொன்னான கையால் பூ போல நீவவா நான் காத்து நின்றேன் காலங்கள் தோறும் என் ஏக்கம் தீருமா நான்
Ah.
பார்த்து நின்றேன் பொன்வானம் எங்கும் என் மின்னல் தோன்றுமா தண்ணீராய் மேகம் தூரும் கண்ணீர் சேரும் கற்கண்டாய் மாறுமா ஆராரிராரோ ராரோ ராரோ ஆராரிராரோ ஆராரிராரோ ராரோ ராரோ ஆராரிராரோ கண்ணான கண்ணே கண்ணான கண்ணே.
The beauty of this song is the flow of
Yes,
the rhythm and the melody is so integrated, and the
for sure.
words are so touching, and the way you
Yeah,
sing it. There's so
it's
many layers.
yes, for sure. It's amazing working with Iman, and I think special mention always for Tamare ma'am. Her lyrics are
Yes.
out of this world. Every song I've worked on with her, just lyrically, once she pushes me super hard and makes sure I don't compromise. But the way she's able to take lyric and marry it with melody is just magic.
Mm.
It's pure magic.
So, would you like to talk about your future projects? Immediate future.
Immediate future, the thing that is taking up all my time right now is my next album. It's gonna be of my original music, so it's gonna be a multilingual album, but a sound that, like I said before, something that I've really kind of evolved. The process started when I started at Berklee College of Music in 2008, of trying to find ways to bring together my Carnatic discipline and these contemporary forms of music that I'm so inspired and influenced by. So it's been over a decade now of carving that out, refining, trying things out, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes. And I feel like this album is going to be my big statement on the global stage. So far, I've been really blessed to have this beautiful fan base in India and with the Indian diaspora. But with this, it's something I feel really strongly about. And I think all forms of music that I'm involved in, whether it's Carnatic music, film, or the music that I write myself, the role, purpose I think that I have and that I play is somewhat of like a healer. I put a lot of my emotion into my music, and my hope is that people listen to the music and feel a sense of relaxation or emotional, just calmness, whatever that may be. I want people to be able to feel through emotions when they listen to music that I've either created or been a part of. So this album is just going to be that at the forefront. We're just starting to mix the album right now, so it's almost finishing, and it will be out later this year. So that is right at the front of my mind, and I'm super excited for everyone to listen to it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So, is there a message that you have for youngsters who want to take up music as their mainstream, and yet are kind of not certain about whether they can make it both financially and
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think many times before I've kind of complained about technology, but I think one beautiful thing that it has done is definitely democratized music, in that everyone can listen to an infinite spectrum of genres and pick up ideas. Creating music in this day and age is way easier 20 years ago. So I guess my message would be, I have a few that I kind of try to stand by like myself, that I remind myself of every day. First is find whatever your individual sound, statement, personality, what makes you unique. Do the soul searching to find that, and trust in that process. It's not easy. There's many moments of frustration, self-doubt, all of that creeps in all the time. It happens to me every day to this day. But I think the reminder of, we are all individuals, we are all nuanced and different from each other, and therefore we have something unique to present and give to the world. There's a real magic in that, and I think instilling that confidence in oneself is the first thing. The second thing is that, yeah, this and my parents have instilled in me this from a young age, but nothing replaces just working hard, getting up in the morning
Yes.
and following a regiment and giving yourself to the music. Because if you give yourself to it in a dedicated way, it will give so much back to you and then some, So I think those two things. And the third thing, which might kind of contradict what I said about technology before, it was don't spend so much time on your phone. I think that's a big one. I think we just live in this day and age where this thing is just always there, glued. And it's easy to get lost in this rabbit hole of scrolling and looking on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, seeing what other people are saying about you or whatever. But, defining a finite amount of time that, okay, I'm going to be on the phone to maybe message some friends or do whatever. Other than that, keep it away because it's an energy sucker and it can really take away focus and inspiration, So I think that's a very practical thing. I would definitely impress on all youngsters that the phone, social media is by no means the end all, that there's a whole universe waiting for you outside of it. And it's necessary to explore that universe to kind of blossom in this world of music. So I think those three things.
Lovely. Now we're just going to have a few quick rounds of, quick answers,
Sure.
short answers in the firing range. Your
Sure.
first celebrity crush. I know the answer.
Trisha, for sure. Yeah, I've gone on record to say this, but definitely 100%.
How good are you at keeping secrets?
I'm not the best. I have a little bit of a motor mouth, especially with people close to me. So not that good.
Do you think women are complicated?
I think women and men are as complicated as each other.
Were you a naughty prankster or a chamatapayi?
Definitely very naughty.
Good. Can you share one little naughty thing that you did?
Well, too many things. I would like. I've talked about the first thing that always comes to mind is like there was one temple like not far in Livermore, not far from where I grew up. And when I was like 3 or 4, like people leave coins at the altars like around. I just got a group of my friends. I must have been like 4 or 5 years old, and we just went and took all those coins and kept them. So like stuff like that, which was actually really bad, and I don't condone it at all. But I was like that kind of a kid growing up for sure.
I mean, it's what you do as a child. I mean, you're so innocent.
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
Okay, an embarrassing moment with a woman fan.
I don't think I have any. I feel like there's a certain mutual respect.
Okay, I would change that. Not an embarrassing moment, an emotional moment when you felt that you were on the right track, doing the right things.
There's been a couple of those. There's definitely been a couple of those. There's one where me and my family were at Woodlands in Chennai, and one like elder lady, maybe she was like in her like late 60s possibly. She had just lost her son. And she didn't tell me this, but she just had tears in her eyes and thanked me a bunch for having sung Madhuvarte. And then her other son came and told my dad that since her son passed away, she needs that song to be able to sleep at night. So like something like that. Whenever I see someone have an overly emotional kind of response to either seeing me or meeting me, or it's always an affirmation that I'm doing something right and fulfilling the purpose that I want to fulfill.
One important lesson that you learned from your stage shows, be it Carnatic or film?
Trust in your spontaneity, trust in your intuition, and don't question it. Because a split second of questioning it is when a mistake can happen. And in the same breath, don't feel overconfident on stage, because both of those things will trip you up, I think is what I've learned. So just
very fine line that separates both. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So are you an adventurous person, bungee jumping, parasailing? Whatever.
I haven't been up until this point in my life. But this whole pandemic and everything that's come with this has kind of inspired me to want to switch it up. So I'm hoping to go skydiving and doing all those things soon. But I've been very scared of that stuff up until now. But I'm hoping that's going to change.
I don't know whether I should ask you this, because we love each artist for different reasons. Your favorite female playback singer of the earlier generation, and why?
It's a hard one.
I know it is.
I'm gonna go with Chitrama. Uh,
Wonderful. Yeah.
it's, just because uh, she's also been very loving to me in a personal way. You know, since I came into the industry, she's always been super supportive. And a lot of the songs that she's sung have really impacted me deeply beforehand. So I'll go with her. But I mean, there's so many amazing, amazing artists to look up to for sure.
So, what is the most boring thing ever?
A room with no music in it, like a silent room where people are just like talking. It frustrates me to no end. I would say that's the most boring thing ever, where people aren't. There's no. I think music just breathes this life into a space. So that's the most boring thing ever.
Are you a diplomat? In the sense, would you always like to be politically correct?
I like to think so. I'm not the type of person to really kind of like stir up the pot too much. If I feel extremely passionate about something, I will speak out. But I tend to go for diplomacy over confrontation for sure.
Sure. I'm just going to ask you a few questions that we have from the audience, perhaps just a few.
Sure, please.
Rajgopalan Deshikar. He says, Sid, at the age of 50, how would you wish to be called? A Carnatic singer, a rap singer, music composer, or a film singer?
I want to just be called an artist at that age. You know, that is able to do all those things and thriving in all those spaces. So you know, all encompassing is the hope and the goal.
I think you would be everything that was read out.
Yes.
So that's what you call complete, right?
Sure.
Soundarya Anand, yeah, she wants to know what are your tips to budding singers as regards usage of voice?
I think learning how your breathing technique works. I think that's a big thing that is oftentimes forgotten. Remembering to take deep breaths using the diaphragm and just spend time breathing and understanding the way air moves through the different cavities in one's body and using that as a way to propel forward. I think that's a big thing that has helped me a lot for sure.
She also says, do you still learn tips from your amma?
Every day. She's first guru, and yeah, she still pushes me to this day.
And Manju Arjunan has a request for you that you should try Ghana songs.
In time, for sure. I think that's something that like I've been waiting to jump into. It's such an interesting kind of form, and the way they vocalize is beautiful. So
Yes.
if I'm going to do a Ghana song, I'm going to take the time to really kind of just like immerse myself in that form. So when I sing, it sounds authentic. I think that's my biggest thing. I want to make sure I sound authentic.
So is the Ghana close to rap?
No, I think there's a different, like, rap is a lot more. Well, I'll preface it with saying my knowledge of Ghana music is still pretty limited. But I think Ghana is more of a vocal form than rap is, where rap is more rhythmic poetry. But again, I listen to a ton of rap. I don't have that much knowledge of Ghana, but it's something that I hope to jump into for sure.
Sure, we're done. What would you like to say as a finale?
One, I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me. I feel, like I said, honored. You're a trailblazer and someone that I've always looked up to, and this means a lot to me. So thank you. And to all the listeners and viewers, I say this one phrase after every post I make or whatever. It's all love, no hate. And I think, especially the times we're living in and what we have collectively gone through as a globe or are going through right now, love is such a powerful tool. So I just say keep spreading love and it can go a long way.
Lovely. Would you like to finish with a song that you have not sung, but you've been impressed with? And
Sure.
நான் பாடிருக்கலாமே அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிற ஒரு பாட்டு.
Yeah, there's this. I've done this before. There's a song called "Utsiru Narambala" from the film "Irudhi Sutru." So I'll sing a few lines from that.
Yeah.
Usiru narambala nee yen osiyethra manasa padikka vachu vella porva pothra காத்தோட கண்ண கோக்காத முகம் காட்டாமல் தீ மூட்டி பார்த்தாத நீ என் சிரிப்பு உடைஞ்சு சதறி கிடக்கு எப்போ வருவ எடுத்துக்க உன் நினப்பில் மனசு கதறி கிடக்கு என்ன கொஞ்சம் சேர்த்துக்க. I think I messed up the lyrics a little bit, but the melody was there.
That's okay. It sounded meaningful, though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid, for an amazing musical evening. I mean, even as you speak, I see the music in your words. So, for being so candid in your responses and giving us so much of insight into the space that you belong to. In our most emotional moments, I'm sure each of us watching you today and listening to you, we would have hummed at least one song of yours to bring about a smile.
Thank you so much.
So, wishing you all the very, very best. I want to double up all that you've done. You know, you should surge forward with everything, composing, singing, all languages, everything. And please bring us more and more of your wonderful music and your compositions too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you. Please say namaste to your mother and your father as well.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was so much of information, so much of music from our favorite Sid. I'm sure the rest of the evening will have us singing some of his best numbers as a recap of this session. So meet you again in the next session with yet another interesting personality. Until then, do follow my Facebook and YouTube handles for the past episodes. In the meanwhile, as we go through vaccination, please remember to continue the SMS, sanitizers, masks, and social distancing. It is up to us to take all the precautions to tide over this pandemic together. Ta-da for now, until the next.